Hey, hey, we're here and we're online, and it's story time, and it is the deep dive Friday afternoon, and hope everybody had a great week. It's been a good one around here. Had some some silliness that, as usual, that we always have to work through, but overall, been a good one. As talked about last night, I got some recording done for tomorrow's story time after I hung up here and be making better progress on that after we finish this stream. Of course, not immediately because I found out that I have dad duty as soon as we get done here, just on account of scheduling things that wasn't fully cognizant of. But that's okay. I'll get done with dad duty and get back to getting this work done, and it'll be all good. Um, as far as writing goes, I am not yet complete on this week's story. Just have, well, yeah, just not complete with it yet, but that's okay. We will note still. Here's what always happens with um, these writing challenges is I, no matter what, whether it's this challenge or finishing up the books for that people have pledged money for on Kickstarters or what have you, it's always for me just hey, oh yeah, the deadlines well off. I procrastinate. Is why I set deadlines to force myself to not procrastinate forever. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, we'll get the story for the week done by the Sunday deadline, and that'll be good. It's not there yet, but it will be. But in the meantime, uh, per the title of this stream, I'm going to talk more about these ballot props that are going down here for the election next Tuesday. And since I'm still stuck in California, despite all since saying that we should have been out of here forever ago, nah, it is what it is. Anyway, so we're still stuck here, so I got to deal with it, which means I got to deal with the jacked up California, jacked up at this, which means dealing with California elections. And some would say, why bother? You know, it's not going to get counted, right? And you're probably true, probably right, but still, matters. So let's read the next couple. Let's go through the next couple of propositions. Proposition 1, which talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's an amendment to the Constitution. It reads, the state shall not deny or interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom in their most intimate decisions, which includes their fundamental right to choose to have an abortion and their fundamental right to choose or refuse contraceptives. This section is intended to further the constitutional right to privacy guaranteed in Section 1 and the constitutional right to not be denied equal protection guaranteed by Section 7. Nothing herein narrows or limits the right to privacy or equal protection. And this is just codifying, sacrifices to Moloch into California Constitution, which I was talking to, was it Chris Rush on Twitter, back after the Roe decision came down, and she was going, and we got to get out there, we got to fight, we got to fight for our rights and all this sort of thing. And I disagree that you have a right to kill an innocent person who hasn't done anything to you or anybody else. But I responded to her that, hey, you're right. Use the democratic process, convince people that you're right. And if you'd done that 50 years ago, maybe you and other people of your philosophical slant would not be in the position they are now, because all the Moloch worshippers did for 50 years was say, hey, see, the Supreme Court says, and did nothing to encode their policy decisions and desires into actual law. I mean, as opposed to case law. I mean, real law. And I know. I've talked to enough lawyers and I've studied enough legal things to understand that case law is real law. But you know what I mean? The statute, the source, not the judge's twisting as he sees fit the source, the actual law. If they'd gotten that, if they'd bothered to encode that on the books, then Roe wouldn't have mattered. But they didn't bother to. They was like, "Oh yeah, we're just going to impose our will on you," because they knew they wouldn't win in the democratic process, and the legislative process, which is how these people always seem to operate. But um, even here in California, was a few years back, 10, 15 years ago, they had ballot prop just like this to say no gay marriage, and then uh, a judge said, no, you can't have that in ballot prop on your constitution, even though you put it on because reasons. But so so now they're trying to do the democratic process to encode abortion. They hated the democratic process when it opposed gay marriage, but whatever, it is what it is. But the point is that if they'd done this 50 years ago instead of imposition by imperial fiat, we wouldn't be in the issue where they're freaking out. I am uncertain they would have been successful in trying to get that process, that through the legislative process, but at least it would have been legitimate and not imposed. Anyway, so I think you can tell where I'm going to come down on this one. So let's move forward to the next couple. So Prop 28, I don't know anything about. I've seen no advertisements about it. I have no idea. So let's see what it says. Prop 28. The official title and summary prepared by the Attorney General. Okay, well, let's go back to the actual text of it. It's an initiative submitted to the Constitution, blah, 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 blah. All right, so back to the summary. It provides additional funding for arts and music education in all K-12 public schools, including charter schools, by annually allocating from the state general fund an amount equal to 1% of required state and local funding for public schools. It allocates a greater proportion of additional funds to schools serving more economically disadvantaged students. And schools of 500 or more students must spend at least 80% of the funding to employ teachers and the remainder on training, supplies, and educational partnerships. And it requires audits and limits the administrative cost to 1% of the funding. And it says it'll increase state costs about $1 billion annually beginning next year. Okay. Beginning next year, Proposal 28 requires the state to provide additional funding to increase arts education, which in and of itself is a good thing. The amount required would equal 1%. It allows the legislator to reduce funding provided by this proposition for arts education in a year where the legislature provides less than the constitutional spending requirement. In this case, the restriction could not be more than the published percentage reduction in total funding. Okay, fine. So it distributes the additional funding to public schools based on the enrollment in preschool and K-12. Of the total amount, 70% would go to schools based on their share of the statewide enrollment. The remaining 30% would go to schools based on their share of low-income students enrolled statewide. Now, define low income. Interestingly enough, the high school, so we've been homeschooling the kids since the COVID thing started with, and the whole travesty of how they did remote schooling was just like, geez, we could not do a worse job. And even though the ex and I are split up, we had been teaming up on homeschool and stuff. But the daughter's now high school age and is begged to go back to this local school that has a performing arts thing because she does a lot of dance and she's working towards going semi pre-pro for ballet. Anyway, whatever. So caved and put her back into the high school. And this high school, even though it's in not a bad area, is designated low income, which is kind of weird, but okay, whatever. So that is what that is. And it says local governing boards may use 1%, up to 1% of this new funding for administrative purposes. Okay. and it requires Prop 28 requires funding to be used for arts educational programs and requires school to certify that these funds were spent in addition to existing funding for arts and education. This proposal also requires at least 80% of the additional funding be used to hire new staff. Which, okay, if they want to expand arts and music and things like that, you're going to need staff for it. So that makes sense, right? Um, the remaining funding could be used for training, schools and materials, and arts. And the DOE can approve requests from schools to spend less on staff, but they'll have 3 years to spend the funds that they receive each year. And they can reallocate any unspent funds to all schools in the following year. Okay, so okay, that makes sense, I guess. Prop 28 requires the principal of a school site to develop a plan to spend the funding they receive. Okay, and they have to report data annually, and they say it'll cost the state of California an extra $1 billion annually. Cool. I'm not privy to the complete uh, state of California's finances, but the last time I recall, they were already running deficits. So an extra $1 billion. All right, where are you getting the money for that? Yeah, silly question. I know, because where they get for money for most of the stuff they do, just rely on the feds to print money and send it to them through something, I guess. But so extra spending on schools and arts, which I'm all for arts, but no discussion of how to fund it. So that seems a little odd. So there's an argument put in the voters thing in favor of it. There's no arguments against it, which I could come up with some if they wanted to, just mostly based on fiscal issues. But and these are it's endorsed by Californians for Arts and Music in Public Schools, which again, I love arts, I love music. I'm a writer. I'm a very rusty musician, but still both, right? So I'm all for that. And it's endorsed by the California Teachers Association and the California State Parent Teachers Association. So, um, yes, my issue is where are you getting this extra money from, guys? I don't know. Well, so that's that. Something I'm my knee jerk is always to say no on ballot propositions, especially ones that require more spending. But man, I do like arts. Yeah, but we'll see how that one works. All right, so Prop 29. Prop 29 is one that I have seen advertisements for, and this is one of those where this is the knee jerker. You get the TV spots where you see the nice looking actor, or most of the time actress, who is who's like, I have to get dialysis, and if I don't get dialysis, I'm gonna die. And if Prop 29 doesn't go through, I'm not gonna get dialysis, and I'm going to die. Is basically how that goes. So it's a lot of tear jerkers on the in the advertising for this one, but I haven't looked into how it. I haven't Hey, are you back? That was weird. The yeah, so the uh something happened with my network connection and it got all jacked up, but I'm back. So couple minutes of weirdness there. So I sorry, not sure what happened there. Hopefully it'll be uh, be not jacked up in the future. So I'm not sure where we got cut off here. We're talking about Prop 29 and well, let's just get get back to what I was saying. The name is the Protect the Lives of Patients with Dialysis, the Lives of Dialysis Patients Act, which, given the trend of naming conventions for um, legislative things, almost certainly means it will do nothing to help the lives of dialysis patients. Of course, I'm basing that on federal the the federal uh, uh, legislation and how disingenuous they are. So who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong on this one. Uh, we'll see. It could be that this is honest. So let's check out this. Is the official summary. It uh, re- requires a physician, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant with 6 months relative experience on site during treatment at outpatient kidney dialysis clinics. It authorizes an exemption for staffing shortages if qualified medical personnel is not available through telehealth. It requires clinics to disclose to patients all physicians with clinic ownership interests of 5% or more. It requires clinics to report dialysis related. Right. It requires clinics to report dialysis related infections data to the state and prohibits clinics from closing or substantially reducing services without state approval. And it prohibits clinics from refusing to treat patients based on the source of payment. Um, I don't know what's going on with the feed because I have according to my network stuff, I've got super awesome network connectivity, but yet StreamYard thinks I don't. So let's see how this goes on. So okay, so what is this actually going to do? Right. So it requires each dialysis clinic to have a physician on site. It requires the clinic to at its expense to have that one of those people on site at the clinic. Uh, the clinic may ask the California Department of Public Health to grant an exception if they don't. And if they get that exemption, they can do it through health stuff, but that exemption lasts for 1 year. Okay. It requires infection reporting. We already said that. Um, I have to disclose who owns the clinic. That makes sense. Right. Full disclosure is always a good thing. Um, it charges penalties if dialysis clinics do not report their. All right, but this is like the fifth time that this has gone fritzy on me, so I'm just gonna end it now. We'll talk to Prop 29 tomorrow, I guess, unless it decides it's gonna stay up. Whatever. gonna do Prop 29 tomorrow. I got to figure out this network thing. Have a good night. Talk to you guys later. I'll let you know the time tomorrow when I know. Probably sometime in the early afternoon. All right. Thanks.